Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Board, with a look at iOS 7.1, which is a fairly significant update for a point update. It does introduce some new features and a lot of design tweaks and performance improvements, which improve performance dramatically on things like the iPhone 4, the iPad 2, and the iPad mini, but also improve the overall performance of things like the iPhone 5S. So even though this does not have hardware constraints, the iOS 7 experience has been sped up quite a bit, and we're going to compare that to the iOS 7.06 experience in this video. Now, perhaps the biggest new feature with 7.1 is Apple CarPlay, which unfortunately isn't a feature that most people can take advantage of right now. So CarPlay, of course, requires a car that is equipped with the feature. Basically, it's an integration solution for your iPhone within your car. So if your car has a touchscreen, and if your automaker is partnering with Apple to enable this feature, you can actually control your phone directly on the touchscreen. So you can integrate things like phone, music, navigation or Apple Maps, messaging, and also get third-party music support. And right now they're limited to a few partners. That includes Stitcher, Beats Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You also have podcasting integration, of course, which is an Apple app. Now, to use CarPlay, you do have to physically connect your phone using the USB cable to your car, so it doesn't work through Bluetooth or anything like that. Now, you can also disable CarPlay by going to Settings, going to General, going to Restrictions. You do have to enable restrictions by entering a passcode. Down here, you'll see this CarPlay toggle, which is new. So if you want to disable it, just turn it off. Now, Apple has also updated the Maps app for improved Bluetooth navigation. So this means that if you have your car connected to your phone via Bluetooth, you can now get the prompts from your navigation app directly through the speakers in your car. So I have a destination set. That's why I have my map covered, because I don't want to reveal my current location. So if you tap the app, you'll see that we have this little audio control down here. So when we tap on that, we now have two output options, iPhone, or in my case, Ford Sync. So if I select Ford Sync, I can now hear the prompts from my map directly in my car without interfering with the audio playing on my car. So if I have my satellite radio playing in my car, this will step in to give me my voice prompts for navigation and resume playback of my satellite radio when it's done. So it works pretty nicely. Now, in addition to improved voices for the UK, China, Australia, and Japan, Siri has integrated a new feature where you tap and hold the home button, and when you lift your finger, it stops listening. So this is better than allowing it to automatically determine whether you've stopped talking or not. So we can tap and hold the home button, send a tweet. Let's make sure we get this review done tonight, period. Would you guys like to see anything else? Question mark. And I think we're done, period. So if we do this the old-fashioned way, send a tweet.
What would you like your tweet to say?
I think iOS 7.1 does a pretty good job, period. But I would like to continue talking, and you didn't let me. So you get the idea. Now, a feature exclusive to the iPhone 5S in 7.1 is Auto HDR. So if we launch the camera app, you can see by default we have HDR Auto. So we'll automatically determine if the scene can use HDR. Of course, if you tap up here, you now have options to turn it off or turn it on at all times. So it'll always take an HDR photo. But if you're in HDR auto mode, basically what will happen is if the scene determines that it can benefit from HDR, you'll get a little indicator somewhere down here that says HDR. So right now it doesn't determine that the scene needs it. There we go. So you found it right there, HDR. Sometimes it flashes on there. It's kind of hard to predict, at least in this setting, but you get the idea. That little HDR icon pops up, and when it does, it saves two photos, both the HDR photo and the normal photo, to your camera roll, and you can select one or the other, and you can adjust this under settings as well. Now, another iPhone exclusive feature is burst mode. So when you hold down the shutter release, it takes a bunch of photos all at once, but it only retains the preferred image, the image that it thinks it's best, or the one that you select. So if you go to the image, you can see you can edit which one is your favorite by going to Favorite and selecting that one. Of course, that's really nothing here. So now this is not new, but what's new is the fact that you can now upload every single burst shot you took. So if you go to Settings, go to Photo and Camera, you now have the option to upload burst photos to PhotoStream. So it'll save every single photo you took, not just the one you selected. Now, Apple has also updated the Calendar app, and we now have this list view, so we can see all of our events in this sort of list view as opposed to having to select on the individual day to see all of your events. Also, if you're in your day, you can see the list view as well by going up here. Now, Touch ID has also been significantly improved. It now eliminates Touch ID fade, which is the phenomenon where Touch ID seems to become less effective over time, so you'd often have to retrain your fingers. Now, I find that this has been substantially improved because Touch ID has not worked well for me at all since the phone launched, but with the update, it's now much more reliable, and I'm pretty impressed. Now, speaking of Touch ID, you also find under settings that it has been surfaced to the top layer of settings, so you no longer have to dig around to find your Touch ID and passwords information. Now, we have a lot of new interface tweaks, including the slide to unlock effect. It's now brighter, and as you can see, the animation is slightly different. Now, there is one difference with the iPhone 4 and the other iOS 7.1 devices, and that's the slide to unlock effect. So as you can see here, there's a slightly different animation on the 4S and newer versus the iPhone 4. So it looks like they kept to the older design. Now, some of the UI tweaks are pretty minor. So the green icons from iOS 7.06 are now darker. So they have a darker gradient with iOS 7.1. It's a pretty subtle difference. Now, we also have a new and improved control center. As you can see, we also have new animations here, so you can see the bounce effect is slightly different with 7.1. We also have kinetic scrolling on our volume control and brightness control. So as you can see, you can just tap it and it slides into place like that. In fact, when you hit the edge of it, it actually bounces for you. That's different here with 7.06. You don't have kinetic scrolling and you don't have that bounce effect. Now, the weather app has also seen some updates. So you can see with iOS 7.1, you get these more darker, opaque icons. You also have a new Yahoo logo in the lower left corner. Now, also in the drop-down notification panel, you'll see that we have no notifications indicated here when everything has been cleared out, as opposed to just a blank screen. Now, we also have a new phone dialer. This design also extends to FaceTime. So you can see instead of having this long bar here, you now have this circle. So, for example, if you just dial something, click call, you can see you get a little animation here. Now, if you've entered a number you haven't entered before, you can see you get a little indicator here toward the left that allows you to add it to your contact book. Now, that's different here. On the iOS 7.06 experience, you had add to contacts as opposed to just that simple icon to the left. Now, the slide to power down animation is also updated with that circle theme. So as you can see here, we still have that slide to shut down effect, but it's slightly redesigned. So you can slide to shut down. As you can see, it dims down completely for you as opposed to what 7.06 did. And of course, you can also hit cancel instead. Now, in addition to Yahoo, Flickr also gets a new icon under settings. Now, they've also made changes to the keyboard, so you can see the text is now bolder and darker with 7.1. You can also see they've changed the caps lock key or shift key. So we have shift, then we have caps lock by double tapping. So you can see this is more clear. We have a little underline indicating caps lock as opposed to the darker background here. Now, in the music app, we have a few slight changes here. So you can see when we tap these buttons, you get a darker button as opposed to what we saw before. Now, iTunes Radio has also been updated with a search box, so you can search by artist, genre, or song, and you can see that the headers here have also changed from a thinner font to a bolder font. It's also a bit smaller. We also have this new icon, so we can create new stations. Now, that was down here before, but they've surfaced it toward the top. So you can go here and create a new station, just like you could before. Now, Apple has also added some additional controls for selecting still wallpaper. So when you go to selecting still image as your wallpaper, as you know, with parallax, the wallpaper actually moves around when you move the device around. And that's made possible because it basically zooms in on the wallpaper while leaving some of the edge to run off the edge of the phone when you pitch it around. So if you select perspective zoom off, if you look really close, you'll see that it actually zooms back out for you. Very slight, so it no longer moves when you pitch the device around. This does not mean it stops parallax effects. So if we go to select set, we can set both. If you look at the screen now, you still have parallax, and that's because the icons and the badges and the notifications are still moving, but the wallpaper is no longer moving. So it reduces the effect, but it's still there. Now, to fully disable this feature, you do have to go to Settings and go to Accessibility, and there's lots of new options under Accessibility, which we're going to explore. Now, if you look under Accessibility, you'll find Reduce Motion, which is toggled off by default. So if you enable this, now if you go to the home screen, you'll see that nothing is moving at all, wallpaper or apps. This also extends to opening folders. So if you tap a folder to open it, you can see instead of getting that zoom effect, you just get a fade in and out effect. Now also under accessibility is a toggle for button shape. So if you look in the upper left corner here, when I toggle that on, you can see that the buttons change. So as opposed to having just text with an arrow, they outline it for you. So enhanced readability for some users. Now we also have increased contrast, which has 3 options. So we have reduced transparency. So when you swipe down here, you can see that we no longer have that transparency effect we normally get. So let's turn that off. As you can see, we get a sort of transparency effect, so we can actually see what's behind it somewhat. It's more apparent under a colorful backdrop. So let me go here. So if we swipe down here, again, you can see the icons through it. Same with Mission Control, or not Mission Control, but Control Center. Again, you can see the icons behind the panel. So if we turn that off, you can see it changes quite a bit. So if we swipe down here, again, just black. Same with the Control Center. And if you look at the dock as well, you'll actually see down here that the dock is now opaque, as are the folders. So if you open up a folder again, those are opaque as opposed to transparent. Now we also have darkened colors to enhance the visibility of icons on the phone, which is kind of hard to really show. I can't really see a difference here. So for example, if I go to the iOS 7.06 device, I can't really tell a difference. We also have reduced white point, which basically brings down the brightness and contrast to a more even tone. We also have a name change for a few features under accessibility. So instead of larger type, it's now larger text. And instead of larger dynamic type, it's now larger accessibility sizes. Now iOS 7.1 also speeds up performance. So here I have an iPhone 5 with 7.1 and a 5C with 7.0.6, and that's these basically have the same specs. So this gives you a fair playing ground to judge them by. So for example, if you're going to bring up an app, let's just do the clock app. You can see it does respond quicker with 7.1, and when you close it, again, also responds quicker, and that's because the animations are a bit faster. This also extends to folders, so if you open up a folder, you can see there's a slight difference here in terms of speed. It's more noticeable when you close the folder, but there you go, you can see the animations are a bit quicker. Now perhaps the device that saw the most benefit from iOS 7.1 is the iPhone 4 and the iPad mini and iPad 2. All did not perform very well with iOS 7, particularly the iPhone 4. So they've done amazing work here to really speed up performance. It's so much better. In fact, Ars Technica did a great article on the speed performance and improvements of iOS 7.1 with the iPhone 4. So check it out. I'll post a link in the description below. Now, as I said, the iPads also get the same design updates and features. So for example, we have a quicker user interface. So iOS 7.1 is definitely a smoother performing system, especially on the iPad. We have the new Control Center, again with the same bounce effect as on the iPhone and iPod. We even have the kinetic scrolling, again, for the sliders on both devices. And then we have our new keyboard, which you can bring up here, again with the new caps lock key as well, and the new bolder fonts. Alrighty guys, so that is iOS 7.1. I think it's a big improvement in terms of performance and some useful new features. I especially like the improvements to Siri, and I definitely like the improvements to the speed and performance. So what do you guys think? What's your favorite new feature with iOS 7.1? Now I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and let me know you'd like to see more of these type of videos in the future. So that's going to do for me in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.